As Israel says shalom to the Prime Minister, it's day 2 of the Prime Minister's historic visit to the country. He earlier met the Israeli President Rivlin. Now the Prime Minister will hold the bilateral talks. It's down to business with the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. In fact, several agreements are likely to be inked. Both the countries will discuss on the sidelines of defense ties. Agricultural cooperation is well on cards. Prime Minister will meet 12-year-old baby Moshe, whose parents were killed during 26/11, and his nanny, who is an Indian. The Prime Minister will after that interact with the Indian diaspora at Tel Aviv. We'll try and connect to Padmaja Joshi, who's joining us from Israel. She's been covering the Prime Minister's visit. Yesterday, there was an apparent bonhomie between the Israeli Prime Minister and the Prime Minister. Today, the Prime Minister is calling on to the President while addressing the media there. He had also said India and Israel connections are the one where you can describe an eye for eye, the popular idiom, but he said this means eye for India and eye for Israel. Both countries sharing cultural ties as well. Israel Prime Minister has called India as Israel's friend. He'd hailed the Prime Minister's visit, the first after diplomatic relations was started between the two countries of any Indian Prime Minister. It was last year when we'd seen the Israeli President come to India, and now it's been reciprocated by the Prime Minister's visit. He met the Israeli President earlier in the day, but now is when the focus will be on what's on the table. Now, Israel and India have several defense cooperation ties on the agenda this afternoon Indian time. We are awaiting a joint statement later around 11:30 p.m. India time. He'll also be addressing the Indian diaspora today, going on to meet baby Khoshev, 26/11 attack survivor. What's also more important is how India and Israel will look at agricultural cooperation between the two countries. Drip irrigation system from Israel could be brought over to India, one of the studies in this tour. Let me go across to my colleague Padmaja, who's now joining us. Padmaja, how's the visit so far been of the Prime Minister, and what's expected in the key bilateral meet between the Israeli Prime Minister next?
We're going to have a working lunch soon after this. The meeting between the two Prime Ministers is on. After that, there is going to be a joint statement, followed by a meeting that happens with baby Moshe. But we know that there is a significant cooperation which is going to be announced in the joint statement in the field of agriculture. There are centers of excellence in agriculture which are going to be inked. Also, there is technology related to drip irrigation and desalination, which is going to be spoken of, Devina. So these are the key agreements that we know of right now. Of course, there's going to be something related to defense as well, but the details of that, everyone is very tight.
All right. Also, Padmaja, it's widely been seen as a gesture between the two countries to deepen the ties that the Prime Minister would be skipping a visit to Ramallah.
That's right. And this is something that foreign policy experts have remarked about. It's very significant because there has always been a relationship, just like India and Pakistan were always on international platforms spoken of together. There was always a hyphenation of Israel and Palestine as well. With this visit, where he is not going to be visiting Ramallah, this is a statement by the Indian Prime Minister that the relationship individually with Israel and Palestine is treasured by the government of India, but it's not going to club the two of them together.
Let's also talk about the timing of the visit, Padmaja, because it's coming after 3 years in the power. He's made the visit to the Arabic countries as well to get them on board. How will now the Saudi Arabia and the Gulf Arab countries will see India's visit to Israel? Has the Prime Minister done enough to take them on board with him? Will this be independent of the two relations?
Absolutely, Devina, and that is the reason why before this visit you had seen the Prime Minister engaging with the other Arab countries. We had Mr. Mahmoud Abbas also coming to India in May this year. So if you speak to any of the members of the delegation over here, the Indian delegation, they say that it is in no way an affront to the relationship that we share with the other countries, the Arab countries, but they are going to be treated individually as far as Israel is concerned. We have significant common goals, especially in dealing with terrorism, and which is why this visit is being seen individually as very important for developing cooperation, especially in the field of combating terrorism and agriculture by both countries.
And how is the Israeli media seeing this visit, Padmaja? What's been the reaction from the Israeli media, from the Prime Minister, who's decided that India should abstain from UNHRC on vote against Israel, from the Prime Minister who's praised Israeli army in the past, and from the Prime Minister who'll also be going to pay homage at Battle of Haifa site?
Huge. The reception here in the Israeli media is huge. You would remember that even before the Prime Minister came, Devina, there was a video that had been released which had the Israeli ambassador to India welcoming Prime Minister Modi. In the lead up to his visit, they'd spoken about how he's one of the most important world leaders and Israel needs to wake up to that fact. And while he is here, they have also spoken about the very personal camaraderie that the two of them are seen sharing, calling each other mere achhe dost. Mr. Netanyahu today talking about yoga, how they need to reach out to each other on a personal level. So all of that, this personal touch to the relationship,
right.
And not to forget the fact that Mr. Netanyahu is accompanying the Prime Minister every step of the way, every single engagement that he has the Israeli Prime Minister by his side, and this is really something that is reserved for very few people, and this is something the media has spoken about here in Israel, that this is the kind of treatment that one reserved for the US President earlier. Incidentally, the Prime Minister is also staying in the same suite at the hotel here, and the Pope. But you see the stature of the Indian Prime Minister is at that level.
And also, he would be, I believe, be in a 3-hour-long dinner with the Israeli Prime Minister and his family. Be with me, Padmaja, because let's play out how the cultural ties are deepened with the choices of food that the Prime Minister enjoys is also in focus. Israeli hospitality on display. My colleague Padmaja caught up with the executive chef preparing for the Prime Minister's spread of food. Take a listen. So vegan food is what the Prime Minister would be served. There you go, special preparations for the Prime Minister. Now, it's interesting because it's a historic first by the Indian Prime Minister to Israel. And it's interesting because less than 11 years after Prime Minister Modi had visited Israel as Gujarat Chief Minister in October 2006, that he is now coming back as the Indian Prime Minister. In fact, he arrived to a grand official ceremony, and yes, the hugs were not missing as well, because there was warm embrace by the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and you also had the Indian Prime Minister. Benjamin Netanyahu has described the Prime Minister as his friend, and at least 3 times they hugged during the 30-minute welcome at the airport as well.